Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. You guys know what time it is. Time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. I'm really amused because I just banned a few trolls for this, so this video probably won't be coming out till tomorrow. I just banned several trolls for coming in and saying, Jason is masking his strength on his training because he uses chains and bands. Let me go ahead and put on my +5 out of Speechcraft. And let's talk about this. And what's funny about that is that nothing could be further from the truth. And if you guys see what I do, you'll understand why. And it's because I only use bands and chains in a way that add weight. In other words, I don't do any partials, right? We don't do board presses with a slingshot. We're not doing reverse bench work, right? Or, reverse band stuff. We're not doing things that reduce the weight on the bar. Everything I do adds weight to the bar. And I'll give you guys a perfect example. What have you guys seen me do in the last couple of weeks of some of my lifts? You've seen me do a box squat from a dead stop below parallel with 405 plus chains, right? And you've seen me bench 315 with a pause against bands. So I'll flip in both of those. All right, so you see that. So a reasonable person could look at that and say, well, I don't know how much band tension he has. I don't know how much chains he has. He could tell me. And here's my question. Does it matter? You know how much weight's on the barbell? Does looping bands over the top to make a weight harder to press to lock out, does that reduce the weight? Does that make it easier or harder? It makes it harder. Adding 105 pounds of chains to a barbell, because that's actually what I have on there. If you count the lead chains and everything, it's 105 pounds of chains. But even if they didn't weigh anything, I have at least 405 on the bar. So you could look at that and a reasonable person could say, well, I don't know how much those chains weigh. I don't know how much that band tension's adding. I don't know how much that pair of midget hookers he has hanging from each side of the bar weigh, right? Because you don't know their weight. But you know how much is on the barbell. You know how much the plates are. Right? I am the only fitness YouTuber that I know of that went out and spent his own money on competition calibrated plates. Right? There is no ambiguity in what I'm lifting. I am literally the most transparent fitness YouTuber regarding my training on the entire platform. There is nobody who's more transparent in their training than me. People will say, well, what do you mean? I'm the only person who is using both calibrated plates and who literally videos every single workout and uploads them. In other words, I don't do secret magical workouts that you guys don't see. If I miss a lift and get buried, I upload it, don't I? You guys see me fail lifts. You see when something goes wrong. All 4 of my weekly workouts go up on the internet, unless I deload, in which case, if I do a deload, I don't upload it because you guys don't need to see me benching 135 pounds. You don't need to see me squatting 200 for a few reps. There's no point because that's deload. But my normal workouts are all up there. And at the end of the day, you've got to look at that and say, well, okay, I don't know how much those chains weigh for sure, but I can see that he's got that much on the bar, right? There's at least 405 on the bar plus a little bit of chain volume. You know there's at least 410 on the bar. Reasonable person could look at that and say, yeah, he box squats at least 410. I don't know how much is at the top, but at the bottom, the hardest part, right? The hardest part, we know there's at least 410 pounds down there. You could look at that bench press and say, well, I don't know how much tension or how hard it is to press against those bands, but he's moved at least 315 from a dead stop on a pause off of his chest. And a reasonable person could conclude that. They can add up the plates, realize I'm using calibrated competition legal plates. They can figure out real quick what I'm lifting. Same thing if I hung a pair of midget hookers from there. You can't say, man, I'm not sure how much those midgets weigh, but they weigh something, and they don't reduce the weight. So you could at least look at it and say if there's 300 pounds load on the bar, you can load at least 300 pounds plus midgets. So a reasonable person could look at that and say, well, that's 405 plus some chains. That's 315 against some bands. I bet that guy can bench over 315. I bet that guy can squat over 405 off of a box. And everyone knows you can usually box squat less than your back squat. Well, what's the reality? You guys have seen me in the same training cycle box squat 440. So what am I masking? If I put 405 on the bar and hang 105 pounds of chains on there and I say, hey, that's my max with that chain weight, that's all I can do. I can't lift a single pound more. If I add another 10 pounds, I don't think I'm going to be able to lock it. But you've seen me do 440 with just dead weight and no chains and no bands on the same lift within the same month. What's unreasonable? It's not a problem. And it's a ridiculousness that people come to when they want to be critical of me. And the reality is, the only way I could be more transparent in my lifting is if I just trained naked. And I practically do. I train in running shorts. Train in running shorts, guys. You know what that gives me? Accountability in terms of body fat changes. So in other words, if I gain fat, you guys are going to see it. If I lose fat, you're going to see it. It's visible 4 days a week, day after day after day. I'm training with very, very little clothing on. I mean, enough to where I'm within YouTube's rules where they're not going to flag me or anything. So, I'm clothed enough to be decent, but I'm in running shorts. So you guys can see my body fat. You can see if it changes up or down, if I'm having a good day or a bad day. You see everything I lift. And people need to remember at the end of the day, I'm not up here doing shows of strength with my training. This is my normal weekly training. This is not me at a meet. This is not me claiming, well, let's see, I've got 405 on the bar plus 105 change. I can box squat 500 and whatever. Right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying I'm box squatting 405 plus a bunch of chains, which is entirely true. That's the only thing. That's not a contested lift either. The box squat's not a contested lift. Meat, you're going to squat more than you box squat. So, you've got to look at that and just laugh at that level of criticism. Now, people say, well, didn't you level that against Strap-on before? Of course I did. You know why? Because he was doing weight reducers. When you start reducing the range of motion to lift more weight, okay, that's masking your strength. In other words, you do a high handle trap bar and then call it a deadlift and claim you can deadlift X amount of weight. Well, you can't, because a 700 pound high handle trap bar is probably a 500 or a 520 deadlift. But he lifted 700 pounds off the ground. Well, actually, much shorter range of motion with better leverages, right? Because the center of gravity is pulled in further. You get better leverages, and you're moving the weight like 6 inches shorter distance and taking the hardest 6 inches out of the bottom. Of course you can lift more weight. That's masking your strength. Hooking a reverse band around and doing a board, and that's actually board presses. If you're pressing off boards, you should be able to bench more weight because you're removing inches from the hardest part. That can be seen as masking strength because it's letting you put more weight on the bar for everyone to see than you would ever be able to move, right? That's playing, that's pretending. Using a slingshot and claiming, I think the slingshot only gives me this much extra. And the reality is anyone who tells you a slingshot only adds 10 pounds to your bench is so full of shit. And I don't even know what it adds, but I have watched a guy, a personal friend of mine, who I spotted on a slingshot before, walk over and take the same weight that he hit at his last meet in comp on a bench. So he took his max bench, what he had done in competition, and he put slingshot on, and he did 8 touch and go reps with it, with his 1 rep max. So how much is a slingshot at? I don't know, 30 pounds, 50 pounds, 100 pounds. I guess it depends on the person. See, that's masking your strength, because it's letting you put more weight on the bar than you're going to be able to really be able to lift. So big difference there, guys. You're making an apples to oranges comparison, but the reality is this stuff is my normal training. This is a standard training protocol, guys. I'm just running conjugate style training. What I'm doing is a normal part of strength training. Tons and tons of elite strength athletes train this way. NFL players, even MMA fighters, some boxers, a lot of serious athletes with a strength component to their sport, heavily powerlifting, but not just powerlifting, do this stuff I'm doing as part of their training. This normal training. This is not my day-to-day workouts are not intended to show you, oh, this is what I can max on. This is my training, guys. And I'm just documenting it so that you guys can see what I do day in and day out. And I am literally the most transparent fitness YouTuber regarding their lifting. I upload every single workout I do to the internet using calibrated plates, wearing little running shorts. I mean, if people want to talk about masking, I am the very, very last guy on the list you need to be accused of masking anything they do in their actual training or in the gym. Absolute absurdity. Because it's actually the complete opposite of true. And this is not me spinning anything. This is just simply common sense to anybody who goes and looks at my training vlog and looks at what I do day in, day out. You can confirm everything I just said for yourself on your own. Right? It's provable stuff right there for you to see. Complete transparency. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.